All right. So just to make sure y'all can hear me, I'm going to turn down my volume. Hopefully, maybe. Turn this down just a little bit. Okay, so now we're talking all about cap space. So essentially, the main places that you need to look to be able to find and manage your cap. They added a new menu to this Madden. So once you're in your franchise, you come down to the GM's office. This is where you can manage your roster, you can trade, you can look at some of the free agents available. But for the main cap locations, you're going to want to go to team salaries. So just for awareness, this is preseason, very first week of the actual season. So you can see we have 75 or 74 out of 75 players on our roster. So typically it'd be 52, 53 players. But we're going to look at team salaries because it really doesn't change anything from the menu perspective. So as you can see here, you can see the very, very top 2025 cap at the very top left here. So an important note is that this cap increases pretty much every year. So I know from the 2025 cap, you have 279 million that you're starting with. For 2026, that's going to jump to 304. So you're already going to have like, what is that? 25 million extra per year. So that's probably for 26 and 27, you're going to get 25 each year extra. So essentially what that means is basically you're going to have 25 million more each year to spend on players. So that's already an added benefit that already happens in the league. So just an important note for there, just because you don't have that much cap space right now, you're still getting that buffer of 25 million for next season. So with that, it shows right below that 2025 cap, the 2025 salaries. So that's basically saying if we come over here to 2025, if we count it up, all the different salaries, this would be the salaries that you're paying currently. So essentially for 2025, we're paying our players 264 million, as you can see once again at the bottom left. So that doesn't mean that your cap space is the 279 million cap minus 264. As you can see on the screen, there's a lot more that goes into that. So if we're just looking at the top row, you can see your rollover from 24. So this will be consistent throughout moving forward. So it'll say rollover from 2025 once we get to the next season. But essentially, that's how much cap space you had left over moving into the next season. So we only had 10 million, but you can see the adjusted cap is the cap for this year that we're working with. An important note is that you can only roll over a maximum of 35 million into the next year. So it's not always like the best whenever you're like, okay, like I'm going to skip free agency. I'm going to trade away all my players. If you make in my cap space is going to be like 72 million. Well, you're going to lose a lot of cap space there because you're only going to roll over 35 million. So that's just a consideration. Not fully sure the end of the season free agency, if that really plays a part. I don't think it does. So just as you're trading away players, making your cap space work for you, just know you can only roll over 35 million per year. So don't really focus too much on that aspect. So you can see our total cap space, and that's the adjusted cap minus your 2025 salaries, minus your cap penalty. So just quickly talking about the cap penalty, that comes from this right here. So if you can see where I'm highlighting the cap penalties, if you trade away players or you release players that have a bonus check assigned to them, you will be faced with a penalty. So what this is saying is, if we're trading away these players, and I'm going to filter by hitting square because I'm on PlayStation, you can filter by any of these categories. It's basically saying, hey, if we wanted to get rid of DeForest Buckner, that's going to be a penalty for us for $30 million. So part of that penalty will impact us this year. And since he's on a 2-year deal, some of that penalty will impact us next year. So if I released him right now, I'm not going to show $30 million on my cap penalty for this year. It's going to be probably like more of like a 20 million this year, 10 million next year spread, because it decreases over time for the penalty. So whenever you're looking at the penalties, you got to space it over the amount of years in their contract. So the penalty for Bynum here is only 21 million. So length of contract's 4 years. So roundabout, it's going to be 5 million cap penalty added every year for the next 4 years. So just something to consider. Doesn't mean necessarily that we shouldn't still get rid of this player. For instance, if we look down here, we get Kwity Paye on here. 1 year left on his deal. $12.9 million penalty. So since he's 1 year, that penalty is only going to apply for this year. Not really all that important. So whenever I trade for players, I'm looking for opportunities where other teams have already paid them a high bonus check and they have a low salary over a long-term contract. And I'll showcase that in just a little bit. So not to say don't be super scared about the penalty. For certain ones, it doesn't make sense to cut them. Like for this one, we got 2 years. The penalty is going to be like a whole year of his contract. So unless we can trade him, which we actually might here closer to the trade deadline, because he's 31 years old, 2 years remaining on his deal. I know I'm not going to want to pay him more than this. We could consider that, but you just have to consider, okay, I'm going to have a 30 million penalty, so I at least need to sign a player that has a long-term contract that will outweigh $30 million penalty. So essentially, if another team paid them 30 plus million in bonus checks, their salary is relatively low over a long point of time, that could eventually recoup your savings with that. So I know that was a lot, but essentially this just means that, just be open to that, but don't just cut this player and assume the penalty. Actively trade them if you can, for better contracts of other skill positions. So to showcase that, I'm going to come in here. Oops. And I already know I'm going to get rid of Daniel Jones, right? So penalty 6 million, savings 8.5. Great. All right, I'll take that all day long because I'm not going to play as Daniel Jones. I already know that. You can see it's 14 million for this season. But before I even show just how to trade him, one thing I want to point out for the salaries, and I'm going to use a different player to showcase this. I want a longer term contract. So if we look at Franklin here, we have the 3-year contract, penalty of 3 million. That's relatively low. Savings is kind of deceiving because you're thinking, okay, if I cut them today, I'm going to save 6.25 million. So you are, but this savings is only showcasing for this year. So if you cut this player, you're getting 6.25 million added to your cap space with a 3.75 million cap penalty added on over the next 3 years. So this isn't the only savings you're going to get. So if you look long term, okay, I don't want to really pay this person 8.2 million the next season, 10 the next. So I'm going to go ahead and trade them. I'm actively going to be saving on their contract here if I can get a player who was signed to a bonus check on another team that's relatively the same overall in a different position. I'll actually be saving more money because I'm cutting down on the contract costs for the future. So wanted to point that out. So just showcasing what I mean by opportunity costs here. I wish Daniel Jones was signed to a longer year contract, so it would be a better demonstration of like opportunity cost essentially. But let's just say penalty $6 million for this year. So let's see how it's going to be worth it if we're going to go ahead and trade old Danny Dimes over here. So from this menu, or you can go into the trade now setting as well. We click trade away. One, we can hit triangle and it'll show us like if anybody's interested in trading them right now, what they'll give us. It's going to be pretty terrible. So I always just come in through here to say, okay, he's 69 overall. I know I'm losing, what was that, like $6 million in a penalty. So what players are going to make it worth trading for him? So I know I'm going to want another QB with him. And I already have one in mind. So I'm going to come down to the Seahawks. So we have a 69 overall Daniel Jones. And let's say we want to just hire one of the rookies this year, who we know they're signed to a rookie contract, what that looks like. If you want to look at any of their contracts, you're going to hit square or whatever that is on Xbox or PC when you're hovering over their name. So view player card. And from here, you hit X on PlayStation for stats and contracts. You hold L2 because he doesn't have any career stats. He's a rookie from Alabama. You come to contract skills. And you can see here how many years are remaining, what's the bonus they're paying, and what's the total salary. So I rarely look at the actual overall breakdown that much because I look at the total salary and how many years they have remaining to essentially divide that up. So like going to pay this guy less than $1 million every single year for over 4 years. So already that's me saying, all right, a cap penalty of $6 million, already worth it to sign this skill player to a long-term contract, basically. And when you don't go through the GM office trade center, it will back you out whenever you hit back. So always best to come in through here. We're going to re-add Danny Dimes. We know we're looking at the Seahawks. Oops. We're going to look at their rookie. You can always see in the far left like how much this will impact your cap room. So you can see we're going from 18.6 million to 27 million for this year in cap. So you can monitor that as well. Once again, that's only determining your current cap. And next, after I make this trade, I'm going to show you how you can always go back and see what's your salary cap estimated to be for next season based on your current roster to do a couple little analysis. But since Daniel Jones is 69 overall and this rookie 65, which is wild, we're going to go ahead and add some potentially picks, or if there's any Any players that might just be skill position, we might be able to just fleece from this guy. Doesn't look like it's going to be, so I always just add a couple draft picks. I always just add way more than I think I'm going to actually get just to see how far the trade. Yeah, they're not willing to do that, probably because I have a second round pick in here. So you submit by hitting your start button. Still not interested. Once again, third round picks a little rich. Fourth round picks also a little rich. What if I had a 6th round pick? Rough. All right, let's just do this straight up if you'll let me. All right. All right. That was harder than I expected it to be. But I get it. They signed a rookie, and I'm trying to give them Daniel Jones. I don't blame them whatsoever. So that deal's official. Daniel Jones is gone. I get some savings and a $6 million cap penalty for this year. But I got Jalen Milroe for $1 million a year for 4 years. So, in that case, that was a good trade. Now, if we come down here to see your next year's salary cap, because that's important when you're thinking about, I need to re-sign players. I need to look at free agency at the end of the year. What does that look like? So if you come to re-sign players, you can see at the bottom left what your current cap space will be in 2026. So you can see in our bottom left, we have $91 million in cap space for next year. And that is before we get to the negotiation periods of these players to see if we can sign them back. So what I would always recommend is either in the salary space, or you can come into this menu, see who has 1 year left on their deal, see how much they're going to want. And if you don't want to pay them that amount, trade them before, I believe it's week 7, to make sure you get a skill player close to their overall, hopefully, so you won't have to pay them, and always look for their contract lengths. So I'm probably not going to trade this person right now, but our left tackle, he's got 1 year left. I'm not going to want to pay him. So if I come into the trade center, trade finder, add our left tackle here, you can see at the very top of his player card right here in the middle, it has years left for all of these players. So you can even come in here, see, all right, these people got 1 year left on their deal right here. So I could see if I can get a trade package for them. So I'm always looking at that, because if you find players like this, like, yeah, I could trade for Brisker here, but he's going to want money at the end of this year. So did I really save anything by trading? Maybe not. Like, if it's worth it and it's a skill player that you're willing to pay, go for it. I usually don't for a cap perspective. So you can see somebody like DJ Moore has 5 years left on his contract. That signals to me he probably got a big bonus check. So his salary is going to be cheap, spread over 5 years. So I'm going to view the player card. I'm going to look at his contract. Contract and skills. Oh, he got a tiny bonus. So essentially I have to take total salary divided by 5. So essentially here we're looking at 100 million total salary. We're looking at what, 20 million per year is what we'd eat if we traded for DJ Moore. So still not as bad as it could be, but that's just something to consider when you're looking to trade, to see if you can assume that 20 million in salary over the next 5 years. Once again, seeing we had 91 million in cap space for next season, probably not going to make that trade, because the bonus isn't large enough and the salary's too large for me to want to make that trade, even though DJ Moore's from the old college in Maryland. Have to respect that. Did not know that, but we would not make that trade. So just a couple key things to consider when managing your cap space. I went way too long on this, but hopefully it helps. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But I'm going to end it here. So feel free to dive in, test out your cap.